buy or die. What a title for a video, right? I'm using an article that talks about U.S. consumers and corporate debt to look into why debt is such an integral part of the American way of life. Here's the article.
Is back with a vengeance, private debt. As Washington is struggling with debt and its political ramification, American companies and consumers are embracing it, running up record amounts in 2013. Whether it's corporate loans, all quality levels of bonds, or simple consumer credit, the debt party is back on in the U.S., whether it's in the boardroom or the living room. Amid the financial crisis of 2008, the U.S. went into what economists call a debt deleveraging cycle, aching to a credit hangover where the party has ended and everyone there decides to quit drinking cold turkey. Somebody has clearly turned the lights back on, though, and corporate and individual buying is soaring. Consumer credit, for instance, surged past the $3 trillion mark in the second quarter of 2013 and continues on an upward trajectory, according to the most recent numbers from the Federal Reserve. At $3.04 trillion, the total is up 22% over the past 3 years. Student loans are up a whopping 61%. Total household debt, according to the Fed's Flow of Funds report, is at $13 trillion, nearly back to its pre-crisis level in 2007 and a shade below government debt of $15 trillion. We have not solved anything when it comes to the deleveraging myth, said Michael Pinto, president of Pinto Portfolio Strategies. We have learned nothing. While the specter of another debt crisis might seem scary, some economists tout it as a healthy sign of a recovery. In a moment of crisis, that's going to come back to haunt you, said Peter Cordillo, chief market economist at Rockwell Global Capital. As long as you can support that debt through growth, it's really not a major concern. That's a big if, and the prospect of rising interest rates could enforce borrowers back into their foxholes. But with the U.S. economy growing at a steady, if unspectacular, 2.5% rate, economists are mostly dismissive about another debt crisis hitting. Gluskin chefs noted Bayer David Rosenberg said the rebirth of leverage is actually a reason for optimism. A July analysis Rosenberg released on the topic marked a sharp change in tone for someone who only a few years ago saw an economy not in recession but rather depression. The building blocks for the consumer to grab the torch are being put together with each and every passing data point as of late, he said. Don't fight it, embrace it. Companies have followed that advice. On the corporate side, debt issuing has surged as well, thanks to some high-profile deals in which companies have been able to go to market and easily raise funds.
Have you noticed, and are you somewhat astonished like me at how so many people who file for bankruptcy are able to start getting some degree of credit a few months after they're filing? Many are even able to finance the purchase of a car if they are receiving income, although needless to say they will pay a very, very high interest rate. As a result of the recent financial crisis, an enormous amount of people had to file for bankruptcy. My initial thought was that at some point, the government or the credit card companies were going to adjust the bankruptcy laws to make it more difficult to file because I figured these institutions had to be losing large amounts of money. But then I thought to myself, how would our economy be affected if these large numbers of people were not able to obtain credit and spend money in the economy? It then dawned on me how important credit is not only to our way of life, but to the survival of our economic and financial system. If people were forced to make purchases based solely on the amount of money they earn or their income, our economy would come to a screeching halt. There certainly wouldn't be much buying taking place, which means that there would not be much demand for things like cars, clothes, appliances, etc. This means that without the demand and people spending, businesses will close on a large scale and the economy will slow down, causing a recession, if not a depression. We have been programmed to live beyond our means or beyond the amount of income we actually generate. because of the availability of credit, and we have become to expect this way of life and standard of living. My friends, one of the things many, if not all of us, should have learned from the financial crisis of 2008 is that it is time to get off the sauce and get back to living within our means. There are so many things taking place in the world today that could make credit unavailable to the majority and that would make the ability to obtain credit at a high cost or interest rate. As mentioned before, this will cause a slowdown in the economy and will cause many to lose their jobs and the ability of many not only to obtain credit, but to pay back the credit or debt they have acquired. It is pretty obvious to me that this vicious make-believe fairy tale financial system cannot continue forever, and one day it will fail. What happens then to the people who owe on their debt, who can't file bankruptcy because they recently filed or because they don't even have enough money to pay a lawyer to file? What about those who have those enormous student loans that cannot be reduced or removed via bankruptcy court? I'll end by leaving you with this one scripture in the Bible that all believers need to be cognizant of. The Bible clearly tells us in Proverbs 22:7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. I say to my Christian brothers and sisters, especially, get your house in order. God has sent his warning to keep material things in their place and priority. Put God first and put all of your faith and trust in him and seek knowledge and direction from him. Thanks for watching. God bless. Peace and love.